All right, welcome, runners. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are watching the world. I'm Coach Roberto Manje, and welcome to the 2021 TCS New York City Marathon Training Kickoff Show. We're 16 weeks out today. It's really exciting. I'm just started training for this year's marathon. I'm not sure about you, but let us know where you're watching from. Is this going to be your first TCS New York City Marathon or not? With me today, we have a great panelist, a great group of panelists actually. Different. To kick off, we have from NYRR, we have Coach Daphne Matalane. Welcome, Daphne. We also have from the Hospital for Special Surgery, we have Cassie Weisland. She's an advanced clinical and doctor of physical therapy. And then representing New Balance, we have the duo of Connor Shelley and Tessa Dombey. They're New Balance tracksters and product educators. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, again, wherever people are watching from. How are you all doing today?
Awesome.
Good.
All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Great. So we'll just get right into it. Again, let us know where you're watching from. If you have any questions about training, injury, gear, we have it all covered with our panelists today. So again, we're just going to kick things off right off the bat. As I said, we're about 16 weeks out today from the 2021 TCS New York City Marathon. Obviously, we were off last year, so everybody's really excited to get back into racing. Super pumped for that. So before we start speaking specifically about training gear and injury prevention, let's talk about how we can mentally and physically approach the long road ahead. So kicking off with you, Daphne, what are some key tips for runners as they begin their long training journey?
Sure. I'm so glad to be here with everyone. And I would say most especially if this is your first marathon, it is so important to have a training plan. And if this is not your first marathon, if like me, you are coming out of an 18-month-long base building phase, it's still good to have a plan. And New York Roadrunners Coaching Lab, powered by Runcoach, is what I'm using for my own fall marathon. It is a good way to safely build mileage, and it sort of customizes things for you, so you can tell it what kind of weekly mileage you've been doing, what your level of experience is, all that sort of stuff. And then it gives you a speed workout and a tempo workout and tells you how far to go for your long run and all that good stuff. So don't go it alone. That's my number one piece of advice.
Oh, sorry. Apparently I was muted. Don't know how. I was saying, welcome.
Is this your first Zoom?
16 months.
I was like,
16
is that the question for me?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Kathy. In your title at HSS, lip reading was not one of them. So I'll do this again. But what are some of the what are the things a runner could do now at the beginning of their training to build habits and prevent injury?
So Daphne actually kind of beat me to it talking about a training plan. I 100% agree with that. This will be my 6th marathon. So I've always gone by a training plan because I think it does really allow you to appropriately increase your mileage, mix in strength training, rest training or rest days, and some cross training as well. I think the other big thing that I would say, not only to first-time marathoners, but even if this is your 50th marathon, we're early enough in the training. So if you're having any aches and pains or pain that's getting worse with running or pain at rest, don't try to run through that. Running typically doesn't make any of those things better. So if you're having any of those sort of nagging things, get them looked at now. It's better to take the time off that you need than try to run through pain. I always think it's better to be a little bit undertrained than to not actually get to the start line healthy. So I think aside from the training plan, that would be my other thing to throw in there. I think my one last plug with the training plan is it's okay to not follow it to the T. I always don't. So if you need that extra rest day or if you're hurting or you're sore, it's okay to take time off. And I think that's really important for a lot of those runners if this is your first time tackling 26.2.
Yeah, wonderful. I love that because you basically said something I feel like I was beat to death, which is one of my favorite sayings, that it's better to be 10 miles undertrained than 1 mile overtrained. So I'm glad that an actual doctor backs up what I usually say, because I am not a doctor. I don't even play one on TV. So yeah, switching gears a little bit, switching gears and gear. It's over to you, Connor and Tessa. Can you talk through how runners can approach finding their product that works best for them? You know, like what should runners be looking for in footwear, things like that?
Yeah. So to start with, I think talk about your feet, talk about your footwear. For those of you who are new runners and doing your first marathon ever, congratulations on taking on this amazing challenge and task. And those of you who are doing your 10th or however many marathon, also congratulations for taking on the New York Marathon. Everybody's feet are different and we're constantly changing as well. So that's something to keep in mind. And sometimes we don't always think of firsthand when it comes to finding footwear. We always stick what's tried and true, but it's always really helpful to go and get into a run specialty store and have somebody look at your feet, have a professional, just take a look and make sure you're in the right footwear to get started. You want to start with something that's going to ensure you're going to have a successful training period. And so it's always great to, if you're comfortable right now coming out of COVID, to go get professionally fitted. I know a lot of us go and search the internet and find answers and reviews, but nothing beats going in store and having a professional look at your feet and make sure that they can give you the tools and resources to help you get started for success for your training cycle. And with that in mind, there's different shoes that you can be wearing. There is neutral and there is stability. So the only big major difference is for stability, we have a medial post right on the inside here. And this is going to give some of those runners who need a little help, who pronate when they run, that little bit of support that they might need. But getting in a really great shoe is going to help set you up for success. And then this is going to prepare you for race day. We never want to try something new on race day. We want to test our equipment and our gear out and make sure that we have the right shoes on our feet before race day and that we've trained through in them and we've got some really good miles in them, because these shoes also only last for about 300 to 500 miles. So it's really important that we'll probably need another pair with this long training cycle of 16 weeks. You'll probably have to get another pair right beforehand, but that's okay. We know that the shoe works. You go back to your outfitter, take your notes, and you'll be all set to go for come race day. And there's always other options too. When we're talking about shoes, we have really great fresh foam product, which is cushiony and it's 360 degrees of comfort and it's going to help support you and hold up on your run. But we also have really fun product that is also with the fuel cell. And this is our foam that's going to propel you forward if you're a runner who's looking for something more snappier. So there's different kinds of technology and foam out there right now, depending on what you're looking for as a runner. Because everybody has different needs. Everybody's looking for something different for their training and on race day. And you could have both in your training regime. These pieces of equipment are meant to be interchangeable, or you can rely on just one for your training cycle if something's tried and true for you. They are not a cheap investment. So it's really helpful to go in store and get these tried on your feet to feel the difference and figure out what you like as a runner. So fuel cell is really awesome. We have a stability model in this that Connor has. It's the Prism, and this is the Rebel V2. This is your neutral option. Again, a fit expert is going to be the person that best help direct you. Yep. They're going to be the best person to help direct you into finding the right shoe for you and your feet. And it might be one of these shoes with an insole. It might be special socks to help with rubbing that you might experience, because you're on the road for a really long time and you're going to do training that's going to be long runs for 20 some miles, and you're going to learn really quickly what works best for you and your feet. You're going to be able to test and figure out what's best for you as a runner, because everybody is different. So it's really helpful to know what works best. And then you can even get yourself up to a carbon plated model for race day. Again, you want to try it out. The RC Elite, which is very beautiful. And this is a whole nother tool too. Some runners get a carbon plated shoe for race day. You do not need it. It is not a requirement. It is definitely a thing that's out in the air, though, to talk and address if you're interested or curious about it. Again, talking to somebody at a run specialty store is going to be the first step, is to figure out if this is something you might be interested in on race day. It might be a training tool just a little bit, just to test out, make sure it works for you. But you only really want to wear a RC Elite-esque shoe on race day, or you want to be training in something like the 880 on a fresh foam or fuel cell platform. So this is also really fun and awesome to talk about. But we're going to start, when we're starting with this training block, we're going to be talking about a trainer. So going to a store, get started. Don't change anything too crazy on race day. Know your equipment is the first big steps when it comes to getting started with your footwear. And Connor can talk about apparel a little bit more.
Yeah, that's great. And before I kick it over to Connor, I appreciate that. Actually, the minute you grabbed the first stability shoe, the all blue New Balance shoe, I was like, wait a minute, because I know we have that. Yeah, the 860, because my wife is actually currently running in it and it's downstairs. So for a second, I was like, whoa, this is very trippy. And you kind of following in Kathy's footsteps, you also validated something that Coach Daphne and the rest of our coaching staff at NYRR says, which is nothing new on race day. So it's really important for runners out there to understand that 16 weeks out, now is when you're starting to experiment with what shoes work for you, apparel, nutrition, et cetera, things that we're going to cover. So again, thank you for validating that. But again, we have the great shoes on our feet, but we're not running, in the buff. So Connor, can you talk to us a little bit about apparel? Maybe the golden rules for apparel, especially marathon centric, and it's summer for most of the world right now, and it's hot. So just talk a little bit about that, please.
So, and as Tessa was talking about, we want to make sure that we have the right fit here. So, it's also good to try these products on and to slowly test yourself out before we get to race day, same as everybody has been talking. But the real three big things in my mind are first, moisture control. And I say that during extreme seasons, so summer and winter. Next, we're going to talk about skincare. And then the last piece would be storage. So when we're talking about moisture management, I'm even going to talk about socks a little bit. Basically, you want to avoid kind of these bargain materials, maybe cotton. Cotton usually tends to pool moisture, where a more tech fabric like our Q-Speed jacquard mesh singlet right here would be able to wick moisture away from your body, increase the evaporation off of your body, and improve that cooling reaction that you get from your sweat. And the idea here is that you want to make sure that you're kind of getting that reaction and your actual body is dry, so you can kind of maintain that cooler body temperature. I believe there was something, I don't think I'm allowed to legally say anything, but there was like one of our materials, your skin with the shirt on would be actually cooler than a bare shirt. I won't say anything legally indemnifying, but I remember hearing something like that from the apparel nerds a couple of years ago. Talking about skin management, we want to talk about proper size. So I split between a medium and a large in New Balance, depending on the cut of the product. And I really personally like to know that I am wearing the right piece for that day. The idea is that a lot of these fabrics, either be it a fitted shirt, meaning that it would be skin tight, you see every little piece of body under there, or something a bit more athletic fitted, would be better than something that is loose fitting. And the idea is a lot of these pieces have some stitching and some other features that if it's rubbing your skin, and if we're talking about the marathon, even marathon long run training, you're going to be out on your feet for hours, theoretically. And if these pieces are swishing around, you're going to have some rubbing, you're going to have some chafing, and chances are you're going to need to invest in that body glide where, those topical pieces should be more preventative and more of an insurance policy rather than a guaranteed thing. So if your apparel fits properly, you are going to be less likely to have that chafing. And then the last piece here is that if you can figure out both that your shoes fit, that they can last you the miles and they can go for one long run without kind of destroying your legs. Same thing with apparel. You want to make sure that these can hold up the test of time for that one long run. so you're ready to go on race day. And as we get closer, we might have some accessories to try out when it gets a little bit cooler, just in case it's a cool race day. But right now you want to focus on, that summer experience and just that getting that proper moisture management, that proper fit. The last piece I'll talk about here is storage. And this is always a popular item. I have my men's Impact 5-inch split short, and there is a women's version of this as well. And what's really great is it's a little hard to see here, but it has pockets in the back. So there is a zippered pocket in the rear that is cell phone, Metro card, apartment key friendly. And then there's these 2 gravity pockets on the side as well. And you can get, some gels, some other pieces. And, I know there are accessories out there that, you can carry your phone on your arm. They have the belts for everything. I always err on the side of trying to have more pockets than less pockets, because you never know, you might find $40 on the street and you pick it up, and if you don't have any pockets, you might lose that free money, man. So that's also a great piece. And then the last storage piece I'll talk about, Roberto, you and I have been on a lot of these together. Daphne, you and I have been on a lot of these together. I always bring up the lightweight packable jacket. This is a belt option. So this doesn't look like a jacket at the moment, but I zip it open and voila, there is a whole jacket in here. And, currently it's July. For most people, I went out for a run at 7 this morning, and I still haven't been able to properly rehydrate yet, despite the fact that I'm drinking. But enough of us live in these urban areas where you're going to go for your run. Maybe you're taking the subway home. That subway is going to be air conditioned, and you're sweaty, and suddenly you've got to chill, right? That's not necessarily a good thing. So having a piece like this that you don't need to have it on while you're running, but if even if you're going to brunch after the long run, it kind of helps keep that thermoregulation going in the opposite direction that you wouldn't think about this time of year.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Connor. And as I was showing, what I actually have mine here. This is the United Airlines NYC half edition. You can't see it too well, but it's my pack roll. It's like a raincoat. It works great. So before we continue, we have a bunch of people tuning in from around the world watching. Shout outs. I'm going to give a few shout outs, and then we have some questions from the audience that I'll direct to you all. So right off the bat, we have Ariel said, "I'm so excited. It's my first marathon." Shout out to you. We have James, 15th New York City Marathon. I'm pumped. Lucy, the marathon that changed my life. Hi. We have Rachel Tranter. I'm hoping it will change mine. As smiley face emojis. I guess people are tuning in from YouTube and Facebook, so emojis are all over the place. We have Vince saying, "Please tell me I could run this year. I'm from the UK." Wink face. Aaron from Long Island, first marathon. Lorraine from Florida, first time live racing. That would be awesome. And then we have Perry, Angela, Rosemary, and Mark, all from New York, Connecticut, saying, my 10th New York City Marathon. This will be number 3 for me and number 3 for me. So outstanding. And then getting to the questions, I believe this one is going to be for you, Kathy. Angela Wind, I have multiple foot injuries, flat feet, plantar fasciitis, tibialis tendonitis on both feet as well. Finding sneakers has become more difficult as I go into this journey. Any sneaker suggestions? So I guess start with you, Kathy, and then we'll kick it to our tracksters on the sneaker suggestion.
Yeah, feet are tricky, and I think a couple pieces I always like to remind runners of: your foot's the first thing that hits the ground when you're running. So, everything from there translates up the body. So if you don't have the right footwear, essentially you might have some poor mechanics or some faulty movements elsewhere. So I think in your case, I'll kind of piggyback off of what was always talked about for shoes. I think you need to go in and have somebody actually take a look at your feet. Typically people who are a little bit more flat-footed, a little bit more of that pronation, some of that tibialis posterior irritation, they're probably going to need a shoe with a little bit more stability. But I think in this case, you really need a good set of eyes on you to not only see how you look in standing, see how you look in walking, and actually getting on the treadmill and seeing what you look like running. But I'll say probably more a stability shoe. And I think I'd probably take this one step further. If you're having a lot of those foot injuries, maybe, seeing your PT if you have one, and them taking a look at not only what's going on at the feet, but taking a look at what's going on a little bit higher in the knees and the hips, and maybe even looking at the core strength. Because the other piece of this is that running is actually a single leg activity. So, you want to have good balance and good stability, not only in the foot, be in the right type of shoe, but also have good strength and stability up the whole leg.
Great, thank you. And then Connor or Tessa, any advice for those sort of feet? Obviously, everybody's different, and you're not in front of this particular runner.
Yeah, definitely kind of piggybacking on what Kathy has already said, going in store is going to be your first step in finding a solution. Each store specializes and has individuals who are meant to look at your feet, but they also have technology now that's cooler than ever with Fit ID or feet scanning systems. So that also is another tool and resource that they're able to use to help you find the right shoe. This is going to be the first step. Also, with the PT, I know we have a lot of medical referrals where they look at those feet scans, and that also helps them. There's orthotics out there and insoles. Those are also really great tools to be utilizing to have in your shoes, but going to see somebody to help you find what the best tools are the first step to helping get all your injuries and situations controlled and getting a better solution, hopefully keeping you injury free too. We need to remind ourselves shoes have a shelf life. Some individuals will run in their shoes till they're burnt to the ground basically and complete through, and they do have a shelf life. So always keeping in mind that your shoes mainly stay between 300 and 500 miles is something to also keep in mind in case you're overrunning in those shoes.
Great, thank you. And like I said, we have a lot of questions, so I want to try to get through as many of them as we can. So keep sending questions and shout outs. We'll get to as many as we can. The next one is from Felicia. Hi, what do you suggest to prevent toe pain after long runs? I wear a large shoe size to allow for swelling, but still have toenail blister pain after 8+ miles. Thank you. So, Kathy?
I was going to, oh, no, go for it.
Well, I'm the lesser qualified person on this, and I decided to jump in head first. But so, for example, myself, I am actually a long size with a narrow foot, and there's while New Balance does make a lot of narrow fitting shoes, sometimes it's not always the one that I want to run in. So first things first, we want to make sure we always have that little about half centimeter or so, maybe half a thumbnail width of space between your toe and the end of the shoe. But you need to make sure that when you're doing that you're lacing with the heel totally locked in. Because if you have a little bit of space here, there's going to be some movement back and forth. So you could have some jamming right there. The other piece too would be just to make sure that the lacing technique is also proper to prevent that sliding around. So the idea is, again, you get that heel all the way in the back, and you want to make sure that your lacing technique is not necessarily tight where it might hurt your foot. But it needs to be snug enough to make sure that you have the proper amount of motion inside the shoe. And I'll let Kathy deal with the more technical aspects of this, and I'll stop putting my foot in my mouth.
No, that was a perfect answer. I think the fit is a big thing here. A lot of people who have toe pain or foot pain, a lot of it is tied into the proper shoe. So I think if you're running in a shoe that's a little bit too narrow, too big, not long enough, just overall not the right fit, your feet might not have enough room, or you are sliding a little bit and jamming that foot up into the ground. The other thing about the big toe, and this is actually something I deal with, is that you actually need some motion in your big toe for that push off. So there may be, something going on there. You may not be in the right type of shoe, based on, if you have a little bit of a stiffer foot, you may need something with a little bit more cushion, or vice versa. But I think shoes play a really big role with us in having the right shoe and the right fit. And also, I'm always going to take it to the PT side of things. What's the mobility look like, not only in your foot and your ankle, but what's the mobility look like in your big toe? It's a really important joint that I think is overlooked, but is really important in propelling us forward in that normal walking pattern, but also the normal running pattern.
That's wonderful. And actually, this is a question I just noticed. So this is actually kicking it back to you, Tessa. One of our viewers, Sarah Kate, said, "Could you clarify what was just said about only wearing the carbon-plated shoes on race day? Wouldn't want to train in the same shoes, correct?"
Yeah, so carbon plated shoes are awesome tool with the RC Elite right here. I would recommend definitely getting 1 or 2 runs before race day in these to make sure that you're all set and that you're not going to have any issues. So maybe do one of your long runs right before race day, or maybe like a workout in the shoe just to make sure it's good, it's fitting, you don't have any rubbing points, friction points. You're not going to have issues on race day. Again, nothing new on race day. So definitely take it for a test drive. This shoe can handle it. You'll hold up and everything, but don't do every single run in this shoe. This is a tool and a resource. This is not a training shoe. So just do a few in here in this shoe, but do not be referring to this model for your whole entire training cycle. It's mainly a race day shoe. Just make sure you're all set on race day and give this a test run beforehand.
Excellent, thank you. And actually, back to you, Connor. Tommy, actually tuned in late and said, "I'm a little late, but what is the shoe that Connor was showing?" I'm not sure. I think you showed a few shoes, but they're speaking about one of the shoes you particularly highlighted.
So earlier we were talking about the difference between a neutral and a stable model. So the neutral model, basically everybody supinates, everybody pronates. Some people like myself that have pancake flat feet require a little extra stability under the shoe. So this is the Fuel Cell Prism, and this is on that fuel cell line. So the North Star of this shoe is explosive speed. And then it has just a little bit of what we would call a co-mold post in here on the medial side to just, it doesn't necessarily stop me from rolling inwards. It just creates a little bit more compression on this lateral side here to make my gait a little bit more neutral.
All right. Great, thank you. So switching gears, one of the other questions we have is training specific. So I think this will go to you first, Coach Daphne. Jen says, some training programs have 20 miles at the longest run. Do you agree? And how many of these 20-mile long runs do you recommend in training?
That is a great question. There is no hard and fast rule written on a stone tablet that says that you have to run 20 miles if you're going to run a marathon. I think that if you are more experienced, if this is not your first marathon, and if you are going for a serious time goal, 20 miles is a good place to max out. Some people like to do 21 or 22. I have done training cycles where I have run as far as 22 miles. These days, I mainly cap it at about 20. And if I am really going for a fast time, I like to have about 3 total 20 milers under my belt, obviously not on back-to-back days or even back-to-back weeks. That's why we have a long time in a training cycle. If you are new to this though, and you're feeling kind of intimidated and daunted and you don't quite get to 20 miles, that's totally fine. You will absolutely finish the marathon if you've done a long run of like 18, 19 miles. It's magic what happens when you pin on a number, right, Roberto?
Yeah, spot on. And I think, as you said, between, the training that you're talking about where you don't want to do back-to-back 20-mile runs, everybody's different. For some people, 20 works. For some people, they feel better at 22. But, whether you're doing coaching lab with us or in-person group training, and if you're in the New York City area, and now we have the weekend long run, you're always going to be guided. But obviously tune into these sort of chats and connect with coaches like Coach Daphne, because there is no one hard and fast rule for everybody. That's the beauty of running. So this next question is actually over to you, Kathy. It's an injury-related question / comment. John O'Brien says, after a 6-mile run this past Saturday, the inside of my left knee started to stiffen up and I have pain when walking a bit, but no swelling. Trying to rest for a bit to see if it heals by itself. So again, it's question, comment, but if you could kind of weigh in on that, like what they should be doing or looking out for.
Yeah, knee pain can actually be pretty common in runners. Sometimes, in front of the knee, or sometimes, outside of the knee, which is a little bit more IT band area. But that pain kind of front, inside of the knee could be a little bit of patellofemoral pain syndrome, which is really just an overuse, maybe things going on a little bit above in the hips, so maybe a little bit of hip or core weakness, maybe tied into, your foot and footwear. I always say the knee is sometimes symptomatic and picks things up that's going on above and below. It could also, this sounds like it's your first run, I'm assuming, so we're not really thinking of any type of overuse. If this was probably more middle of your training, sometimes knee pain can manifest as an overuse injury. If you're not really following what Daphne talked about, a training plan, you can do a little bit too much too soon. But it could be the result of a little bit of hip weakness or core and weakness above, and maybe some things going on at the feet. I would say, don't try to run through this, especially if you're having pain with walking or at rest. Give yourself, maybe 5 to 7 days off of rest. If rest doesn't make things better, I would probably go in and see somebody. You don't have any swelling, which is good. So it could be, some biomechanics going on, maybe some strength or, weakness, or some, decreased flexibility above or below the knee.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kathy. And then this question, I'll just go to any of you, or at least the New York locals. Cat Lice says, can you recommend shoe stores or places in New York City that give great foot running analysis and carries good running shoes? So we could do it around the room. I'm not sure. I think, Tessa, you're the only one that's not a New York local, but Kathy, Connor, you're all over the place, and obviously Daphne, Upper East Sider. Any recommendations?
Mm-hmm.
So, if I may, as the local representation for the run specialty market, I'm going to try to answer this without possibly stepping on any toes or anything like that. Really any run specialty store, true run specialty store, is going to be very effective. So, out here we have Jackrabbit. If you're within the 5 boroughs, Jackrabbit. There is Super Runner Shop, Paragon Sports down in Union Square, and then Brooklyn Running Company. I work with these people extensively, and even before I started in this industry, I could walk into before I started working in footwear, I used to work on the tech side. I could walk into any of these stores and confidently have a conversation that I could get out and get the shoe that I wanted, both by cushion level and how speedy I wanted them to be, but also to make sure that my biomechanics were correct. You could also even say possibly an REI or something like that. I know they have a location in Soho that we just started interacting with a little bit more, and they do have people that are run trained, but for the actual gait cycle and for these scans and things like that, I would stick with the run specialty side. So again, that Paragon, that Brooklyn Running Company, Jackrabbit, or Super Runner Shop. I don't think I forgot any in there. But also, if you're in the area as well, there are a couple of independent retailers and companies that have other names than those ones I listed. So if you just look up in whatever service you're using and just type in running store, chances are you're going to see something that will be passable in this regard.
Excellent, thank you. Well, we have a bunch more questions, but I'll get to some other shout outs. We have Mark from New York saying hello. Ryan from Florida, this is going to be their first New York City Marathon. Michelle she's watching from Belgium, so hello. Rosie from Florida. Roger, first New York City Marathon, but has done Chicago 3 times. We have Kristen, hi from New York City, so pumped. And we have a Connor Shelley fan, Christina Marie. This will be their 5th, and saying hi, Connor. And then we have, I think that's it on the shout outs actually. So yeah, keep letting us know where you're watching from, how many marathons you've run, if this is your first. But switching back to the questions, like I said, we have so many, I'm trying to get through them all, so bear with us. James Dow is saying, I'm part of the NYRR Running Lab training plan program. Do any of the coaches have suggestions on the painful solitude of the long training runs?
You've come to the right place, James. Shameless plug here. You can always tune in through your Runcoach app to Long Run Radio, our podcast. I'm one of the podcast hosts. We put out shows once a week. This week's comes out tomorrow, and you can find the link right in the Runcoach app. So that's a good start. Another cool thing, especially if you're in New York City, is New York Roadrunners group training is getting weekend long runs off the ground. And I speak from extensive personal experience here. It is so much more fun, so much easier, just all around so much better to do a long run with some good company. So check that out as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, the long run is always the daunting thing, especially for first time marathons. We hear so much about it. It's like, do I have to, as somebody asked earlier, do I have to do 20 miles? And then even if you can't do it, it's like, what am I going to do with all the time out there? So this next question, partially training, partially maybe on the injury side. So Kathy, Daphne, feel free to chime in. But we have Perry saying, I ran my first marathon at 42 years old. I'm 55 years old now and can't train the same way anymore. It just doesn't work for me. Any suggestions? So, Daphne?
Kathy, I'll let you start.
I was going to age is definitely going to play a factor into it. So you might not be getting some of those longer runs in. I would probably go out and take a stab at that one. You may need to have a little bit more focus on strengthening, maybe a little bit more cross training worked into things. Maybe instead of one rest day, you take 2 rest days. But I think maybe you're not hitting those 320 miles. Maybe it's only 18 miles. Maybe there's little modifications in that. Maybe, 18 is your max mileage. And I know when I ran my first marathon, I think the longest I ran was 17. I still finished. It wasn't pretty at the end, but you may not do some of those long runs. Maybe there's a little bit more cross training, because cross training is going to help build your aerobic capacity, and it is, less pounding, less time on your feet. So I think there may be some more modifications in there, and, definitely a heavy emphasis on strength training.
And I would add to that the recovery aspect, definitely take an extra day here and there if you feel like that's useful for you. But even just day-to-day training, it is so important, especially on a hot day like today, to do all of the little things after a run, like rehydrating, like getting some protein in within 30 minutes, your foam rolling, your stretching, all those good things that happen outside of your running workout will set you up for better recovery and better running success tomorrow.
Great. And then this should be a relatively easy answer, but kicking it to the tracksters, we have our good friend Edgar. He always chimes in and tunes in from, I believe, Harlem. He wants to know, what's the best running shoe, the 1080 V11 or the Fresh Foam More V3 for the marathon?
Oh, that's a personal preference out there. Me, I'm a huge fan of the new Fresh Foam More. I think it's a fantastic shoe. It is definitely the best variation of that shoe that's come to light. I just think, for me personally, it locks in my heel better. It feels more secure for my foot. It's just really cushiony and really plush. There's just nothing like it out there right now. It has become my favorite shoe. So how about you, Connor?
So I personally prefer a little bit more snap and a little bit more road feel. So I might lean a little bit more towards the 1080. I'm sorry, Edgar, that's not going to be a good deciding answer there. But the big thing is, if you have tried them, or if you have the opportunity to try both of them, that is going to help make the decision for yourself. I know for a fact the More is just a little bit straighter lasted. It's a little bit more accommodating to foot types. The 1080 tends to be a little bit more peppy and a little bit more, I don't want to say performance oriented. They're both performance shoes, but in the way that I think of almost like our fuel cell lineup here that is made for speed. One versus the other, I feel like the 1080 is a little bit more speed oriented, despite both of them kind of being at that premium cushion level. So horrible non-answer. It depends on your feet, depends on you. If we run into each other in the streets, we could have a further conversation about it for sure.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, so there's two questions that I'm gonna just read on air, and I'll answer really quickly before diving back into the panelist questions. The first one is saying, Gloria, hello, my favorite marathon is New York City. Will NYR be having the long runs training races like previous year? The quick answer for that is yes, we're working on the 18-mile long run, which is always in favor. It's supported, 3 loops of Central Park. And so look out for registration for that. That'll be October 2nd, so about a month out or so, which is usually when people try to do their longest training run. And then the other one is from Yuan Chen. If I run in person, can I still wear a mask on November 7th, 2021? Yeah, the answer is yes. Obviously, we're all experiencing the pandemic in our own ways and different parts of the country and the world and have different levels of comfort. So obviously, if you want to wear a mask, you're always welcome to. So thank you for those two for asking your questions. And then again, kicking it back to the panelists. Unfortunately, this is for you, Kathy. I always feel bad when I kick it to you if it's like an injury-related question. Obviously, it's your field of expertise, but I feel for the runners. So John's saying, I have what I'm hoping is a bursa issue, but starting to fear it may be a torn meniscus. Any suggestions for symptoms that may help figure it out before going to a doctor? Thank you.
This is a tough one because, the meniscus is really only going to be fully diagnosed by some imaging. Typical symptoms for meniscus can be like clicking, catching when you're bending and moving the knee. Swelling can definitely be confined, for both injuries. I think to really get a full diagnosis, you have to go and see somebody. I also think with something like a bursitis, if rest isn't helping, if icing isn't helping, those typical things, if it's not getting better with time off your feet, it may not be your meniscus, but if rest isn't helping calm things down, going to see somebody. But I do think to get that full diagnosis, probably need to see your doctor.
All right. Yeah, that was such a great answer, and hoping for the best, because obviously nobody wants to be injured. This is maybe more for you, Coach Daphne. Is Carmen says, I haven't started training yet, but I run regularly. Will 12 weeks be enough, and with cross training?
Yes, I hope so. I'm about 12 weeks out from my own marathon here, so. But if you are, especially if you're experienced, if this is not your first marathon, 12 weeks is plenty of time. Cross training is definitely a good thing to do. Dina Castor famously won the Chicago Marathon one year doing most of her training in the pool. I don't recommend that, but if you got to do it, that's one option. 12 weeks is, especially for a lot of us who have not been racing at all and have spent the last 18 months building our base. You've got a base now. So you're ready for the long haul.
Great. Thank you for that. And kind of kicking it back to, maybe a slight injury question or injury prevention. Ariel says, previously I've experienced shin splints when training for a half. I've started training and shins are feeling tired. No pain yet, knock on wood. How do you avoid shin splints?
Shin splints are tricky. Shin splints can definitely be a bit of an overuse injury, but they can also be tied into footwear. So if you're not running in the right type of shoes, your shoes are going to help you absorb some of the shock from the ground. So if the footwear isn't right, your body's got to find a way to absorb that shock. And if the footwear and the feet can't absorb the shock is going to travel up the chain. Next area is going to be that shin, that front of the lower part of the leg. I would definitely take a look at your footwear. Are you running in the right type of footwear? If you can't remember the last time you switched out your shoes, that 300 to 500 rule, that could be playing a role in this as well. And then what's your training pattern look like? Are you on a training plan? Are you, you've just kind of started training right now, but if you're haven't been doing much or don't have much of a base, if you're trying to kind of go full blown into racking up 20 miles a week and you haven't been running, you could potentially be looking at a little bit of overuse. So I think footwear is key, switching out your footwear, 300 to 500 miles, and just, following that 10% rule you hear, increasing your weekly mileage by about 10% to help avoid things like shin splints or those overuse injuries.
Great. Thank you. And then this next question, I'll try to answer it relatively quickly, but also kick it to Daphne. Jen says, hi, I'm a first-time marathoner and like Daphne live in the Upper East Side, neighbors. How do your training programs accommodate different paces and runners of different levels and experiences? So I'll quickly jump into it and Daphne could carry on as well. But like we have something called group training, which is in all 5 boroughs. But for you, being in the Upper East Side, it'd be the Central Park location. And they're broken down into groups. So groups 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, based on maybe your best race pace or running experience. And the good thing is that that's just maybe where you start on day 1 or week 1, but you're always able to move up a group or down a group depending on how you're feeling or obviously your pace. And each group has approximately 2 coaches that guide it either in the middle or the front or the back in order to make sure that all runners get adequate, hands-on coaching, if you will. But in those groups, we have people who are quote unquote front of the pack, to people who are maybe less experienced, to people who are just getting back into running. So it really is very inclusive and welcoming. Coach Daphne, did I miss anything?
I would echo all of that and just tell you, Jen, if you live on the Upper East Side, be on the lookout for us in these shirts. We are in Central Park on Tuesdays and Thursdays, morning and evening, and also a little later in the morning on Wednesdays. So we can accommodate your running schedule. Tuesdays is a speed work day and Thursday is a tempo day, because those are typically workouts that are tough to do on your own and so much better with company. And then, of course, we also have our Saturday weekend long run coming up as well. So lots of options.
Excellent. Thank you. And being mindful that we have 13 minutes and try to get through all the questions, I'll answer a couple that I see. Aaron saying, for the weekend long run, is it completely limited to 11 minutes per mile? Parentheses, not there yet. The answer is no, it's not limited to that. So I believe the exact pace or the quote unquote limit might be 13:44 a mile, which is around a 6-hour marathon, which is for our TCS University Marathon usually our cutoff. But get on our website, NYRR.org, look under train, and it'll have all the information there, especially for training, group training, weekend long run. And then there's another question. Is the NYRR Run Center going to start letting runners in to try out different New Balance sneakers again? The answer is yes. The Run Hub, which obviously Connor has been to many, many times, and Tessa will visit at some point if she hasn't already, will be reopening after Labor Day. So we're really excited about that. And I'm sure once that opens, you'll be able to meet Connor there at some point and hopefully Tessa. So just took care of those 2 quick questions. And then kind of kicking it back to Connor / Tessa. I like to rotate my shoes during training. I have 2 pairs, but I'm thinking to rotate 3 pairs. Is that okay? And should I wear one of them during the actual marathon?
Are you answering? Am I answering it?
All right, I could go. So before I worked for a footwear brand that provided me with very many free and cheap shoes, and I was a little bit more budget conscious. I generally had a rule where I had 3 shoes at any given time within the rotation. It was always one pair that was like almost totally dead, not totally on its last legs. I had one shoe that was kind of in its prime, and I had one shoe that I was breaking in. And basically, it would be like every 3 days you try one of the old shoes again. And when you get to the one pair that is totally done, that means you buy a new pair, and then the prime shoe becomes the almost dead shoe. The new shoe becomes the prime shoe, and then the new shoe becomes the new shoe. That being said, I would say, again, we were talking about the carbon fiber shoes a moment ago. And if you were planning to use a race day shoe like that, make sure you're doing your long runs, make sure you're doing some of your workouts in them. But honestly, a lot of marathoners tend to use their daily training shoe, because if 26.2 is the longest you're ever going to run, the shoe that's going to be able to handle your day-to-day miles is going to be just fine. So, if you decide that that daily trainer is the one that you want to go for and the one that's going to be the most successful for yourself, then I personally would recommend doing so. Hopefully myself, if, I can lay off the craft beer for a little while, get a couple of pounds down, and really nail those workouts, I will be wearing that carbon fiber product. But, if the dad life kind of sticks with me and, I need a little bit more protection, I'm probably going to go for that daily trainer option right here.
I love that. As a fellow father, I like that dad life. That will not be a new category for this year's 50th running of the TCS New City Marathon, but maybe for the future. Another quick question, possibly injury related. Is it possible to have all injuries flare up when it's time to change your sneakers?
Yeah, I would say yes. If your shoes have a shelf life and they need rest breaks. So I actually like what Connor says, alternating shoes. I actually do the same thing. I have 3 shoes circulating at the same time. But I track my shoes on my running app, so I know exactly how much mileage is on there. If you're hitting anywhere between that 300 to 500 miles or getting close to that, yeah, some of your injuries might start to creep up. I actually switch my shoes out at 300 miles. And when I start to hit that 250, 275, I can feel it in my feet. I can feel things in my shins. My body kind of knows when the shoes have reached the end of their life. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. All right, 8 minutes to go. I think we're going to get through a lot of these questions, not try to make them rapid fire, but this is a relatively easy question, I think, for our tracksters. So Lana, I have an expensive pair of shoes, never worn, purchased before the pandemic. Is there an expiration date of the new shoes purchased 2 years ago?
They should still be good for you. If they've sat in a box and they've sat in a cool and comfortable environment, not out in a hot garage and been exposed to the elements, they should be perfectly fine and be able to still hit that 300 to 500 mile threshold. But again, like if you kept them in a closet somewhere in the shoebox, perfectly safe, they should be great. It's more so when that shoe is out in the elements and getting exposed to extreme heat or extreme cold, you might be seeing some breakdown on some of that rubber, but they should be great.
Oh, great. And then a quick question from Louisa. Which is the best shoe for pronation? They say pronation foot, but somebody who pronates.
So I'll say this goes again into that going to try to get fit, because I have my fuel cell prisms here that are nice. They're lightweight, they're snappy, they're a little bit more speed oriented. We showed our 860 a little while ago. That's going to be a little bit more contemporary, a little bit more cushioned, a little bit more protective. And then we have actually releasing as we speak the Fresh Foam X Vongo V5, which is a premium cushion expression of that stability. And if you personally don't know, what cushion level you want, or how light you want a shoe to be, it's going to be hard for us to personally tell you what's going to be the best. There's obviously some price points in there, and there's rough experiences we can talk to, but realistically, going into a store and trying them on for yourself and going through the fit process is going to best determine what is going to work well for you. If you think of it, the foot is the most diverse by number of bones, or it's the most bones per capita, I guess, on the body. So there's a lot of nerves. Kathy can speak to this much better than I can.
You're doing great. It's all you.
Yeah. Don't jump in and save him, Kathy. Just let him go about it. All right. Yeah. In conclusion, the foot has a lot of bones.
Yeah.
It's all you need. It's all you need to know.
Yeah. There's so much diversity in experience there that you need to be able to go through a process, figure out what adjectives, does cushion feel better? Does lightweight feel better? Do you want road feel? Do you want to feel like you're not running at all? Those are all things that are very personal, and you need to make sure that you yourself are getting the exact personal fit that works for you.
Excellent. So there's about 5 minutes left. I'm going to try to get through maybe 2 more questions, depending on how thorough we are, and then I'll close it out with some shout outs. So this one is from David. Says, with the New York City Marathon 18-mile train run in Central Park happening about 5 weeks before the marathon itself, how can I make sure I go to the start line healthy on the day of the New York City Marathon? Coach Daphne.
That's a great question.
Go for it, Daphne.
Oh, thanks. I would say, so depending on your age, it depends on, that will affect how long you want to taper for. 5 weeks out is definitely time to be doing some long mileage. I am a master's runner myself, so I like a 3-week taper. But when I ran my first marathon at the tender age of 27, I think I only tapered for 2 weeks. One thing I would say about the 18-mile training run in Central Park is you're going to hit the Harlem Hills 3 times, and that's a lot of big bad hills. So I don't want to intimidate anyone, but that's some good solid training right there.
Great. Kathy, anything to add to that?
I would say I was definitely going to answer it more from like a training perspective. When I first ran the New York City Marathon years ago, I did the 18-mile training run because it was suggested to me that's a tough run. And if you can get through Harlem Hill 3 times, you can do the marathon. So I think, from the PT, preventative perspective, if you're not at a point where you're ready to run 18 miles, maybe not do that run. But I think if you've trained appropriately and that's part of your training plan to run that mileage at that time, it's a great run to really get you ready.
Great, thank you. And I'll jump into what may possibly be the last question. I see more coming in, so I appreciate everybody tuning in. This one, again, New York City centric. How often should we train for the New York City bridges? Once a week? Bridge intervals? What should we do? So again, Coach Daphne, this is maybe directed to you as a coach for the New York City Marathon.
Yeah, that's a great question. I am a huge fan of training on the course for no matter what race you're running. Obviously, that's not always possible if it's an international race, but if you're here in New York City and you have access, you can't run the Verrazano. The Verrazano is only open to pedestrians that 1 day a year. But there is a pedestrian lane on the Queensboro Bridge, and the Queensboro Bridge is a really traditionally kind of challenging spot for everybody, for the pros at the front of the pack, for the wheelchair athletes. It's miles 16, 17, and it is a big, long, steep climb. So I definitely recommend training on that. And I know that some of our weekend long runs are likely to hit that. And it's very likely that group training Thursday tempo will also take you up and over and then back up and over the Queensboro Bridge, which is a great hills, our speed work in disguise kind of workout, as Uncle Frank Shorter tells us.
Great. All right. Absolute last question, and then I'll read the shout outs. I've seen so many coming. I'm amazed. This is for you, Kathy. Could you please give us a tip on one running exercise and one gym exercise we could do to increase speed?
To increase speed, I would probably do some core work in there, because the core is what gives you that strong foundation to have a good movement throughout not only your limbs, but your lower legs. So everything stems from the core. And if you have a weak core, you may have some faulty mechanics going on down through the lower legs. So core is really your foundational building block for everything that you do. So I would maybe throw some planks in there, some front planks or side planks. And then I always have to add one more thing, probably some glute work. So bridges, clamshells, even some side lying leg lifts. Those would be my go-to, because you really do need that strong foundational base for everything that you do. And I don't know if there was one other thing, if I missed part of that question.
No, that was pretty much it. Just yeah, nailed it. Thank you. So, all right, now I'm going to try to rapid fire give all the shout outs before we close out today's show. But before we do that, I want to remind everybody, thanks again for tuning in. Our next show is August 12th. So it'll be same sort of format. Keep sending your questions. If you have, I know a few people answer multiple, some people not. So continue to send your questions. We love to interact with you. Reach out to us at NYRR.org. But yeah, we'll be here. So as for the shout outs, going to take a deep breath and try to get through these. We have Shalipa, first marathon, super excited. We have Beth from Boston, first New York City. Sharon from Westchester County using Runcoach for Boston Marathon. I love it. Justin saying hello. Deborah from Michigan, going to be her third. Fred, first New York City Marathon was in 1983. We have Ewan, he says hi. He asked a question earlier. Aaron, first marathon, so excited. Dom, I'm excited, first marathon. A lot of first-time marathoners. We have Sarah, first marathon, running to bring awareness to being a living organ donor. Congratulations, Sarah. David, watching from Boston. So excited I got in this year. Good luck to everyone. Elizabeth, glad to be here. First marathon. I need all the info and help I could get for the first time middle-aged with left issues. So really, really happy to stay motivated through Runcoach and virtual coaches. I'm doing this. William, watching from Bermuda. I wish I could be there at the beach. First marathon. Chris, teacher, second marathon. A lot of other first-time marathoners, somebody from White Plains, New York, Shippy. We have Timo. I'm one of the 33,000 that was able to score a bid. Congratulations. Another first-time marathoner completing the 9+1 program, Ahmad. Jim, Detroit, New York City is on my list. Timo, can't wait to travel over to the USA from the Netherlands to run their first marathon. Chrissy, this is going to be her fifth marathon. First was for the 40th running, so about 10 years ago. Edgar, again, hello from East Harlem. David, thank you for all the advice and tips to everybody. I'm almost there. James, good luck to everyone with the training and the marathon itself. Angela, thank you guys. I will go back to have my gait checked again since it has been a while. Appreciate all the advice today. Ingrid, super stoked to run my first marathon. Thanks to NYR for the support and back on this journey. 3 more to go. Melissa, Chicago, first marathon. Happy to be running it. Ran Chicago 2019. Lorraine, this will be my first on the 40th anniversary of my father running in 1981. Bravo. And last but not least, shout out Carmen, watching from New Jersey. This is my 4th marathon, but I want to run the entire race and not run walk, starting at mile 17. So loads and loads of shout outs, a lot of engagement. A massive, massive thank you to our panelists today. We had Coach Daphne, Kathy from HSS, and our NB Tracksters, Tessa and Connor. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and thank you for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you.
All right.